Welcome back to the deep dive. For this customized deep dive, we are really getting into that critical moment, when political ambition stops being about grand speeches and starts being about uh, hard math.
Exactly. We've been poring over excerpts from this incredible text, The Price of Visibility, which follows a political newcomer, a guy named Daniel.
And we're zooming in on his initiation, really,
Right.
the moment he gets pulled into the inner circle.
Right. And our mission, if you will, is to give you a shortcut to understanding that whole psychological pivot. We want to identify the true cost of moving from being invisible to being visible in that world.
And maybe more importantly, how the gatekeepers, the people with the power reframe, compromise.
They don't call it compromise. They call it something much better, much more structural. They call it discipline.
Okay, let's unpack this journey. It all starts with that one moment, the end of Daniel's invisibility.
Mm-hmm.
And the source is so clear about this. The political machine doesn't suddenly notice Daniel because they believe in his idealism. Not at all.
No, it's purely transactional. They see potential use. That's the exact phrase.
He becomes a tool, a potential asset. And that utility is what finally puts him on the map.
And the person who puts him on that map he's crucial to understanding the whole system. Let's talk about Richard Hale.
Right, Richard Hale.
The source doesn't paint him as some public-facing politician.
Mhm.
He's more like a deep mechanism of power. His background says it all. Former campaign strategist, a top party insider.
The kind of person who's been around long enough to have built the machine himself.
He absolutely is. He doesn't just know the rules. He probably wrote the footnotes. He's the guy who knows where the bodies are buried.
Yeah.
And his priority is always the system, the stability of the machine over any one person's ideals.
What's so effective, what the source really highlights, is the subtlety of his approach, the way he transfers power.
It's so quiet.
He doesn't come in with loud promises or demand anything. He just approaches Daniel and delivers, well, maybe the most powerful line anyone like Daniel could ever hear.
What is it?
He just says, "I've been hearing your name."
That is a psychological masterstroke. It's instant validation. It's recognition.
And access. It suggests immediate access to a world that was, until that moment, completely closed off to him.
It moves Daniel from the cheap seats to the private box in one sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And Richard is smart. He doesn't insult him by offering some low-level job.
No.
He offers guidance. He frames it like they're peers, talking strategy. He gives Daniel this clinical diagnosis of his problem. He says, you're asking the right questions,
Yeah.
but you're asking them too loudly.
The translation being, your idealism is nice window dressing, but your volume is a threat.
Exactly. It's a threat to the established profitable order. Visibility, as Richard is about to teach him, requires calibration.
Right. It's not just being seen, it's being seen the right way, which means you have to match the system's noise level.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets us to the next stage, the hidden map of power, the kind of knowledge you absolutely could not Google.
This is the insider's advantage, 100%. Richard just lays out the true mechanics of the system for Daniel.
And it's totally different from the public version.
Completely. He shows Daniel which districts really matter. And it's not the ones with high voter turnout. It's the politically safe ones that control key committee assignments.
And the money. He shows them where the money actually comes from.
The real flow of capital. The specific silent donor networks that operate way outside the media spotlight.
Can we get a bit more granular on that? Because that's the kind of detail that really makes this a deep dive. What's a specific example of how Richard changes Daniel's understanding of power?
Okay, yeah. The source gives a great one. Richard points to a place, let's call it District 14.
Okay.
And in the national story, it seems totally irrelevant. Low population, it's a safe seat, no one ever talks about it.
The kind of place you just skip over.
Exactly. But, and this is the whole lesson, that district controls the chairmanship of the Appropriations Committee.
Which is the choke point for everything Daniel wants to do.
It's the choke point for his entire platform. Without access there, all his big ideas are just rhetoric. It's a really chilling lesson that real power isn't about persuasion. It's about control over process and, financial leverage.
So it's clear Daniel isn't just getting friendly advice. He's being shown the actual infrastructure of influence.
Yeah.
And the power imbalance in that room. It must have been staggering.
Oh, completely unmistakable. Even if Richard acts like this benevolent mentor. Richard speaks in certainties, absolute knowledge. Daniel, for all his intelligence, can only speak in questions.
Richard knows everyone. Daniel knows no one.
And yet, this is the brilliance of the trap. Despite that huge imbalance, Richard treats Daniel like he belongs for the very first time.
And that feeling of finally being validated by the structure,
Yeah.
that's the hook.
That is precisely the hook. Daniel, the outsider, is suddenly being seen by the ultimate gatekeeper. So this guidance, it feels necessary. It doesn't feel manipulative. The validation itself is the currency.
It's less like mentorship and more like being handed the keys to a very expensive car that you don't actually own.
That's a perfect way to put it. You get to drive it, you get the prestige that comes with it, but someone else holds the title. And that binds Daniel to the system before he even knows the full price of admission.
So Richard has given him the map. He's validated his existence.
Yeah.
But maps always come with a toll booth, right?
They always do.
And this leads us right to the core challenge Richard puts on the table, where he basically forces Daniel to redefine what success even means to him.
This is the pivot point. Richard delivers the central mandate. He forces Daniel to look in the mirror and says, you need to decide what kind of man you want to be.
Oof.
And then he clarifies, with total conviction, this path doesn't reward honesty, it rewards discipline. And that one sentence, that's the entire price of admission.
So when Richard says discipline and not, compromise or even corruption,
Yeah.
he's asking Daniel to redefine morality itself, isn't he? To serve the system.
It is absolutely a sophisticated euphemism. And the source makes a really key observation here about the language of omission. He never says the ugly words.
Right. No corruption, no selling out.
By just substituting discipline, he reframes giving up your integrity as a technical skill, a professional necessity. He's asking Daniel to internalize that ethical flexibility isn't a moral failing.
He lets Daniel fill in the blanks himself.
He does, which makes Daniel complicit. Daniel has to define the boundaries of his own compromise, which puts the moral weight back on him, even though Richard is the one setting the impossible standard.
So what is the test? What's the catch?
Well, exactly. Richard is testing whether Daniel will choose the utility of the system over the purity of his platform. And the test itself, it comes in the quietest way possible. It's not some big, dramatic, illegal thing.
It's small.
It's small, it's specific, and it looks almost administrative.
So what does that incremental test actually look like?
It's a calculated show of loyalty. Richard tells Daniel to publicly support a certain candidate X. The source confirms Daniel does not trust this candidate. He finds their policies weak, ineffective. On top of that, he's told to go to specific, high-dollar fundraising events, not public town halls,
Of course.
and repeat these carefully curated talking points. Points that, in some cases, directly contradict what Daniel had been saying so loudly before.
So it makes the compromise routine. It normalizes it from day one. It's just about fitting into the machine.
Precisely. And Richard frames this as the only way Daniel can earn credibility. His logic is inescapable. He says, if you can't manage the small act of unity, how can we trust you with real power?
And that's the moment Daniel has to realize this isn't mentorship, it's a test of loyalty to the machine.
It is. It's the moment his idealism slams right into the messy reality of getting through the door.
So we have to look at the internal bargain Daniel makes with himself here. Because that rationalization,
Yeah.
that's the psychological core of this entire story. How does he justify it?
Well, the source gives us a really vivid picture of the mental gymnastics involved. He basically sells himself this idea that the compromise is temporary.
It's just for now.
It's just for now. It's strategic, and it's ultimately necessary. He tells himself, I'm only delaying my values. I'm not changing them. He argues that he has to get the power first, the power that Richard controls, and then he can make real change from the inside.
Which is the classic, maybe fatal negotiation that so many people make.
It is. He's trading immediate purity for the promise of future efficacy. He convinces himself that he's in control of the compromise, instead of realizing that the compromise is now in control of him.
So he agrees. He passes the test, and the reward is instant, just like Richard promised.
Instantly delivered.
He's visible, he's shaking hands, he's in the photos, and crucially, he's saying less than he thinks. His message is aligned. People recognize him. And those important doors, they open up just a little.
The reward system is immediate. It's powerful. It locks in that disciplined behavior. The leverage is now tangible, It's reinforced by public recognition. He's successfully traded his loud, honest questions for quiet, disciplined access.
But that access has a cost, a constant psychological toll. The source really emphasizes the price Daniel pays in the quiet moments.
That's the emotional price of visibility. It's not just the one public lie. It's the internal corrosion that happens every time he sits down to, say, rewrite an email to a constituent.
Deliberately softening his position.
Exactly. Or when he swallows an objection in a meeting. It's that stark realization that the skills he's learning aren't about crafting policy. They're about how to survive. And survival now means echoing the machine.
That distinction, winning versus surviving, is so powerful. It suggests Richard's lesson wasn't about political strategy. It was about self-censorship.
Absolutely. And that connects to the true nature of Richard's role here. Richard never has to explicitly say what he wants from Daniel from now on because he is just constantly quietly building leverage.
And how does that leverage work? Is it just about favors, or is it more structural?
It's entirely structural. Richard gave him the map, the credibility, the recognition. So now, if Daniel steps out of line, Richard doesn't need to yell at him or fire him. He just has to cut off the flow.
Cut off a resource.
With access to the key donor lists, the detailed campaign finance reports, all the things Daniel now needs to maintain his visibility. Richard has made Daniel indebted to the system that Richard himself controls.
Which brings us to the core pragmatic insight of the price of visibility. What is the ultimate definition of this relationship if you strip away all the nice words?
The devastatingly pragmatic truth the source really hammers home is this. In politics, mentors don't create equals. They create investments.
Ah,
Daniel's career is now an asset in Richard's portfolio. Richard doesn't want Daniel to succeed for Daniel's sake. He wants Daniel's career to yield guaranteed returns for him.
whether that's a vote on some niche regulatory issue.
Or just a reliable, compliant face to send to certain donor events. Daniel has become an asset to be managed.
That perfectly encapsulates the whole transaction we've been following. Daniel exchanged his idealistic questions for disciplined access, and in return, he got the immediate, heady rewards of recognition.
It's a calculated bargain, all wrapped up in a quiet strategy session.
So Daniel gained visibility, but that comes with a certain permanence, doesn't it? A complete lack of privacy.
It does. And that brings us to our final thought for you to mull over, which the source implies for the future. Once a figure like Daniel is visible, once his career is an investment, his entire past becomes, well, public property.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're dealing with the Richard Hales of the world, you have to remember that the compromises made today, the things you agree to bury in the name of discipline, they never really stay buried. The price for visibility often includes the lifelong maintenance of secrets. And Richard Hale always holds the key to the vault.